Chapter 142, Formation 9. Flashback. Team Renjiro was about to press on the attack, when Fujin said, Formation 9. The eyes of Renjiro, Miko, and Hoka widened. Formation 9 was a code word for a battle tactic that Renjiro had taught them. It was a tactic used under a specific condition. The condition was that they are facing adversity so strong that they have no chance of victory and a high chance of death. Renjiro's eyes widened, but he completed his jutsu. Fujin made one shadow clone and poured around 70% of his chakra into it. Renjiro made 3 clones and poured 60% chakra into one clone and 5% chakra into each of his remaining 2 clones. The weaker clones used the transformation jutsu to transform into Hoka and Miko, as neither of them knew the shadow clone jutsu. He followed up with the summoning jutsu to summon the sloth. All this was done in under 2 seconds while Kakuzu and Kaminari were hiding under the dome. The clones stayed behind while the real ones escaped by flickering continuously. After escaping for a kilometer, Renjiro made 3 more clones while Fujin made another. A couple of clones transformed into Miko and Hoka once again and continued escaping forward. While the real team took a different and longer path and left behind no tracks at all. After splitting, Fujin was breathing hard. He had lost most of his chakra to the clones. Since he planned to end with Shadow Explosion Jutsu, his clones won't return any chakra. After moving for a bit, Miko asked seriously, "Why did you say Formation 9? Who were those guys?" Fujin didn't reply and tapped one of the pockets of his flak jacket. A scroll dropped. Fujin opened it and summoned a bottle. Everyone watched as a bottle of soldier pills appeared in Fujin's hands. Fujin opened and consumed a pill. He looked at Renjiro and asked, "Do you want one as well, sensei?" Renjiro nodded and took a pill. Fujin kept the bottle back and answered, "The masked man is Kakuzu. I read his information in the bingo book. He is, or rather was, an S-rank ninja." This information surprised them. Especially Renjiro, who knew the information of all S-rank ninjas. Renjiro asked, "What do you mean by was?" Fujin answered, "According to the information, he was sent by Takigakure to assassinate Lord First Hokage. But he failed and was presumed dead. However, somehow, he managed to make it alive and return to his village. After returning, he revolted against his village and became a rogue ninja. He was never seen again. I guess everyone assumed that he died and hence he isn't put in the shorter bingo books." The explanation shocked them. But soon, they became skeptical. Miko said, "The first Hokage lived a long time ago. How would that guy still be alive if he fought back then?" Miko purposefully stretched the word long while speaking to tease Fujin. Even Renjiro was doubtful of this information. How could someone that old look so young? Fujin shrugged and said, "We will get the information when our clones are dispelled. If you have the bigger bingo book, you are free to check." He looked at Miko with a smirk on his face and said, "If you want to go back to check with your own eyes, then good luck. I'll be sure to offer flowers to your grave, haha." Renjiro instantly shut him up, "Don't joke about such things. Anyways, fighting them wasn't a part of our mission. So there is no need to risk our lives against enemies we don't have information about." Fujin looked at Hoka and asked, "Hoka, you said his body was disgusting. What did you see?" Hoka answered, "Instead of nerves and blood vessels, his body seems to be made of threads. And he had 5 hearts in his body." Miko was shocked. She asked, "5 hearts? How can something like that be possible?" Hoka replied, "I have no idea." They both looked at Renjiro. So did Fujin. Renjiro shook his head and said, I have never heard about any such technique. But, if we assume that having just one heart would keep him alive, it could mean that he just faked his death against Lord First. Fujin, Miko, and Hoka nodded. They all analyzed the information. After some time, Fujin asked, Sensei, who was the other guy? Renjiro looked at Fujin and asked, You didn't see him in the bingo book? Fujin answered, The bingo book has way too many names. I probably forgot. I only read the S-ranked ninjas in detail. Renjiro understood. The bingo books had a lot of names. It was impractical to remember everything. He said, The other guy is Kaminari. He was an elite jounin in Kyumigakuer. He is strong, and very close to being ranked S. He was deployed against Kirigakuer in the Third War. So I never fought him before. Fujin was surprised. He thought, Akatsuki recruits ninjas who aren't S-ranked? I guess none of Kakuzu's previous partners was S-ranked. That's why they died at his hands. This guy will be killed by him as well. Fujin asked Renjiro, why did he go rogue? Renjiro answered, we don't have much information regarding that. He went missing after the Third War. We speculated that the Third Raikage passed the secrets of his lightning release, chakra mode to his son and not to him. That is why he couldn't master the lightning release, chakra mode, and hence didn't have any chance at becoming the Fourth Raikage. Seeing that he has gone rogue, it looks like this is indeed the case. Fujin was surprised. He thought, oh well, no matter the world, nepotism exists everywhere. Fujin replied, I see. That seems dumb. Renjiro nodded, yeah, it is. Fujin said, did you notice their cloaks, sensei? Renjiro nodded. Fujin said, they are both rogue ninjas. And both are very strong. Seeing that they both wore the same cloak, they probably have some organization behind them. Renjiro agreed, yes. It is disturbing. I'll ask Lord Hokage to look into this. If there are more ninjas at this level in this organization, then they could pose a threat to even Konoha. They moved alongside the longer path for around 10 minutes while discussing more. Miko and Hoka complained about missing out and decided to learn the Shadow Clone Jutsu after returning to the village. Team Renjiro flickered numerous times in order to ensure that they can't be chased. Miko and Hoka also consumed a soldier pill each. While moving, Fujin wondered, Renjiro was never mentioned in the original story. Could it be because he was killed by Kakuzu? Then again, he is getting old. He could have just retired and stepped aside. And he probably became one of the thousands of nameless ninjas who participated in the Fourth War. Not much point thinking about it. Finally, Renjiro and Fujin received memories of their clones. Sweat immediately formed on Renjiro's face. He said in a shocked voice, you were right, Fujin. Kakuzu is strong. Very strong. If we had stayed back, the most probable result would have been our death. Miko and Hoka were shocked. Hoka asked, he is stronger than even you, sensei. Renjiro nodded. He answered, don't overestimate me. There are many who are stronger than me. While killing my clone, Kakuzu said something about taking my heart. I guess his longevity secrets have some relation with his multiple hearts. Also, he probably went a bit easier on my clone as he didn't want to damage my heart. If he was serious about killing me, my clone wouldn't have lasted that long. Miko and Hoka were stunned by Renjiro's admission. Fujin wasn't surprised. He was well aware of how strong Kakuzu was. Renjiro looked at Fujin and said, "You did great. If it was known that you managed to injure Kaminari, your reputation would explode." Miko and Hoka looked at Fujin with envy. Knowing their thoughts, Fujin looked at them with an innocent smile on his face and said, "I probably burned his right forearm with the clone explosion too." They immediately snorted and looked away. They both hated looking at Fujin's smug face. Fujin looked at Renjiro and said, "Keep it a secret if you can, sensei. I don't want a bounty so soon." Renjiro nodded. Getting attention wasn't always a good thing. He said, "I'll report it to Lord Hokage secretly." Miko, Hoka, don't talk about this to anyone. Both nodded. As a ninja, keeping secrets was critical. The lesser others knew about you, the higher your chances of victory would be. Kaminari was much stronger than Fujin. The reason that Fujin managed to injure him was that he got overconfident and wasn't aware of Fujin's skill with the wind vacuum technique. Fujin looked at Renjiro and said, "Using long and wide-range ninjutsu is very useful. Especially when fighting against someone stronger." Renjiro nodded and said, "It's especially true for wind element. Facing Tsunagakure in the desert is a nightmare. Even more so when they mixed poison with it. But, don't get overconfident. Kaminari didn't go all out as your chakra would eventually run out. If you are outmatched, then this tactic is only good for wasting time." Fujin nodded. He had sensed that Kaminari stalled only because his fighting tactic was unsustainable. Fujin said, "I wonder if they will chase or not." Renjiro analyzed and said, "Probably no. They took 10 minutes to dispel our clones. Tracking would be tougher and they would have to move a lot faster." Fujin nodded. Chasing would be rather pointless now. But, they were both wrong. A bit later, both received the memories of their clones again. Fujin said, "That was impulsive." Renjiro nodded, "Yes, it was." Miko and Hoka asked, "What happened, sensei?" Renjiro answered, "They tracked our clones." Kaminari attacked recklessly. All 4 clones surrounded him and exploded. He should be injured, but his life won't be in danger. I guess he was just annoyed at getting fooled. Miko chuckled, "That would teach him a good lesson for chasing after us." Renjiro replied, "Don't take it too lightly. This time we were saved due to Fujin reading the bingo books. When we return, you and Hoka should read it too. Also, this tactic worked perfectly this time. Next time, it won't work so well. So work hard and become stronger." His students nodded. Though they got away without any injuries, the experience was very scary. After traveling for a bit, they finally reached the borders of the Land of Fire. Chapter 143, Akatsuki. While they were entering, Renjiro suddenly stopped. His students looked at him. Hoka asked, "What happened, sensei?" Renjiro replied, "Kaminari died." His students were shocked. Miko and Hoka thought, how could someone so strong die suddenly? Fujin recovered from the shock fastest and concluded, "Looks like Kakozu killed him for his heart." Though Renjiro didn't say anything, he probably managed to destroy one heart with his clone. Most likely the lightning one. Hoka asked, "How did he die, sensei?" Renjiro answered, looks like they had an argument. When Kaminari turned his back, Kakuzu attacked him. His technique does depend on hearts. He stole his heart after killing. Renjiro thought hard. After some time, he said, don't tell anyone about him. I'll make a secret report to Lord Hokage and have him investigate Kakuzu. His students nodded. The death or betrayal of an elite jounin during peacetime would always be a huge deal. Such matters are better left to the village to handle. The team kept moving forward at a fast speed. Hoka asked, Sensei, aren't we going to go to the patrol outpost? Renjiro shook his head and answered, no. A lot of things happened during this mission. It's best to report to the village right away. As for Siaki, I'll talk with him later. Fujin thought, yeah, that would be the best. Though we are inside the land of fire, I wouldn't call it safe. Due to eating the soldier pills, they weren't tired. So they continued moving without any breaks until they reached Konoha. Land of Rain. Deep within the dense forests of the Land of Rain, a hideout existed. Even light had difficulty reaching it. The number of people who were aware of its presence can be counted on one hand. A man sat still in this hideout. Suddenly, a figure began appearing from the ground. It appeared right in front of him. The man opened his eyes. His eyes shone with purple colors. Multiple circles can be seen in his eyes. Whitezetsu said, pain. Pain. You won't believe what I saw. The man sitting was the Devapath of Nagato. Pain looked at Whitezetsu, waiting for it to say. But he didn't say anything. Pain asked, what did you see? Whitezetsu said excitedly, Kakuzu and Kaminari fought against a squad from Konoha. The Konoha ninjas managed to run away and injured them. In the end, Kakuzu and Kaminari entered into an argument and Kakuzu killed him. Nagato was surprised. He asked, which squad of Konoha did they run into? Did the remaining two Sunnins return? Black Zetsu replied, no. It was Senju Renjiro, an elite jounin from Konoha, and his students. Pain asked, how strong are he and his students? Black Zetsu replied, he has a bounty of 45 million ryo. He is quite strong, but not in S rank. His students just got promoted to Chunins. Nagato was surprised once again. However, soon he was disappointed. He thought, a squad of fresh Chunins led by an elite jounin managed to injure and run away from a couple of Akatsuki members. And they even caused an argument which resulted in one of my members dying. So disappointing. Whitezetsu said, it was so surprising. Kaminari just turned his back to Kakuzu and got stabbed in the back. Nagato and Black Zetsu ignored Whitezetsu. Black Zetsu asked, what do we do now? Pain answered, let Kakuzu move alone. Scout a partner for him that he can't kill. Whitezetsu said, since Konoha ninjas fought with them, Konoha will now have information about us. If they focus on us, it may cause a lot of issues. They have some scary ninjas. Pain replied, they most likely already know about us. Even if they take any action against us, they are no threat. You don't need to worry about it. Just scout for stronger members. Zetsu nodded and left. White Zeta said, that was surprising. I thought he'd be upset or angry. Black Zetsu replied, he is strong. Even without Akatsuki, he could capture all 9-tailed beasts. So he doesn't attach any importance to weaklings who die so easily. White Zetsu smiled and said, yeah. His eyes are so scary. Zetsu would search for new members for Akatsuki. Unfortunately, Haiden won't complete his ritual for quite a few years. So many more Akatsuki members would die at Kakuzu's hands. Konoha. After traveling the whole night, Team Renjiro returned to Konoha early in the morning. En route, Renjiro imparted his vast knowledge to his students to prepare them for their future. After entering Konoha, they went to the Hokage building right away. They walked towards the Hokage's office. The door was closed. Renjiro walked forward to knock on the door. However, an Umbu ninja appeared in front of him. The Umbu ninja said in a serious tone, Lord Hokage is busy. You will have to wait. Renjiro looked back at him and said, it's important. The Umbu ninja was surprised. He knew Renjiro. He said, Lord Hokage is having a meeting with the elders. Renjiro replied, it's more important. Besides, it's good that the elders are there. They would like to hear my report as well. The Umbu ninja nodded and said, wait a few seconds. He knocked on the door. Inside the office, Hiruzen was discussing some matters with Homura and Kohaku. They stopped as soon as they heard the knock. The Umbu ninja entered and said, Lord Hokage. Senju Renjiro has returned and has something important to report. Hiruzen furrowed his eyebrows. He thought, knowing Renjiro, he wouldn't interrupt for no reason. He said, all right, send him in. On hearing Hiruzen, Renjiro entered the office. His students followed him. The Umbu ninja left the office and closed the door. Hiruzen looked at Renjiro and asked, how did the mission go, Renjiro? Renjiro answered, the mission went well. There were 16 rogue ninjas who were formerly from Kirigakure. We killed 13. I'll report the details later. What happened while we were returning is important. Hiruzen and the elders paid close attention. Renjiro was one of the very few active elite jounins in Konoha. If he thought something to be important, it would be a serious matter. Renjiro said, we were attacked by 2 rogue ninjas while we were returning. One of them was Kaminari from Kumigakure. Hiruzen and the elders immediately became serious. Renjiro continued, the other was called Kakuzu. He is a rogue ninja from Takigakure. Fujin remembered his data from the bingo book. Apparently, he had tried assassinating Lord First. This surprised them. Kohaku immediately said, that can't be right. Even if it is, that person would be very old and not worth our attention. Renjiro replied, he is stronger than me. He would easily be categorized as an S-rank ninja. Luckily we escaped while deceiving them with clones. Otherwise, even getting away would have been unlikely. This shocked them. Renjiro's strength was top tier in Konoha. Only 3 in Konoha could claim to be able to kill him without allowing him to escape. Hiruzen asked, even you wouldn't have been able to get away? Renjiro nodded. He said, even more worrisome is that they were wearing the same uniform. Both wore black cloaks with red clouds on them. Hiruzen's eyes widened. Renjiro noticed it. Hiruzen said, "Akatsuki." After a pause, he continued, "It's where my treacherous student joined after betraying us." Renjiro was shocked. He asked, "Even Orochimaru is there? What do we know about this organization?" Hiruzen replied, "Not much. Jiraiya tracked Orochimaru and they entered into a fight. He got this information from Orochimaru. We did some searching. Apparently, it is a mercenary organization. IWA and smaller countries around it often employ them. We don't know much about them. Their leader is a mystery. So is their total number of members. Other than Orochimaru, we had heard just about Juzo joining them. And now we know about Kaminari and Kakuzu joining them as well." Renjiro analyzed and replied, "That's not much information." Hiruzen nodded. They discussed a bit about Akatsuki and what steps they should take. Renjiro proceeded to provide them with all the details of the encounter. Fujin, Hoka, and Miko paid attention and observed how Renjiro interacted with the leaders and provided the information. They noticed that Renjiro made no mention of Fujin's battle achievements against Kaminari. After half an hour of discussion, Hiruzen handed Team Renjiro the mission rewards. Hiruzen looked at the newly promoted Chunins who just had to undergo such a frightening encounter. He thought, "Sigh, I don't want such young kids to encounter such dangers." But since they survived, this incident will make them stronger. Should I reward them with something to motivate them more? As the thought crossed his mind, Hiruzen's gaze fell upon Fujin. He immediately decided, no, there is no need to. Team Renjiro was dismissed. They left the Hokage's building. Chapter 144, Chapter 141, Farewells. Renjiro looked at his students and said, "Come, let's go out to eat." His students followed him. Miko asked, "Which restaurants are open at this time of the day, sensei?" Renjiro replied, "The ramen shop should be open. Follow quickly. It's my treat." He flickered. His students immediately began the race. They arrived at the shop and ordered their ramen. Renjiro asked, "What have you planned for the future?" Miko replied, "I will join the Konoha police force." Hoka said, "My father will arrange for me to join a squad. So I will be doing more missions." Fujin answered, "I am not sure. I haven't thought about it. I guess I will spend some time mastering the wind vacuum technique." Renjiro thought and said, "Miko, I know all Uchiha join the police force. However, there aren't many opportunities to fight in the police force. I would recommend you to go on a few missions. It will provide you with more experience that will be helpful in becoming a jounin." Miko nodded and said, "Yes, sensei. If the police force isn't a challenge, then I'll take difficult missions as well." Renjiro smiled. He looked at Hoka and said, "Hoka, don't forget to train ninjutsu as well." Hoka nodded and said with reluctance, "Yes, sensei." Renjiro looked at Fujin and said, "Fujin, training is good. But don't forget to do missions as well. In a battlefield, your skills will grow at a much faster pace than in a training field." Fujin nodded and said, "Yes, sensei." Tuka served ramen. They began eating. While eating, Renjiro said, "Chunin is an important phase. Your leadership skills will be developed at this rank, and you will be able to undertake a variety of missions and cooperate with a large number of fellow Chunins. When undertaking missions, do a few missions with Chunins you have never worked with. It will help you understand the skills of a lot more ninjas. And you could also find techniques or jutsus that suit you perfectly. So keep your mind open and observe everyone properly. He took a pause and said with a serious tone, of course, the most important thing is that you take care of your life. Don't take unnecessary risks and complete the missions in the most efficient ways. Don't try to get interesting fights when you can finish your enemy off with lesser efforts. All three nodded seriously. Until now, they could play around as they had Renjiro looking after their backs. But that won't be the case anymore. Renjiro said, there is another thing that I want you to know. Fujin, do you recall our conversation about Kekii Genkai? Fujin thought for a bit and said, yes sensei. Miko asked, what did you discuss? Renjiro replied, we didn't discuss much. He looked at Fujin and said, last time, I didn't tell you some details as you were still training. The truth is, that other than inheriting a Kekii Genkai from a bloodline, you can also create a Kekii Genkai by fusing two natures. Miko and Hoka were surprised to learn this. Fujin was shocked. He thought, what the hell? Kekii Genkai can be created? By people who don't have any relations to that bloodline. Miko asked, how can Kekii Genkai be created, sensei? Renjiro said, let's take the example of Scorch Release. It is a Kekii Genkai that forms from the fire and wind natures. If a ninja has mastered these two natures and can fuse the two natures perfectly, then that ninja will be able to use Scorch Release. Miko quickly asked in an excited tone, does this mean that I can have two Kekii Genkai? Renjiro nodded and said, if you can fuse two elements perfectly, then yes. He paused for a few seconds to let his students absorb this information. He continued, however, it is almost impossible to do this. Very few are known to attain a Kekii Genkai through this method. I didn't tell you about this earlier because I didn't want you to waste your time on this. Even someone as talented and strong as Lord Hokage couldn't manage to do this. Fujin thought, oh. Even Hiruzen can't do it? But, he said that very few could do this. Who were they? And how did they manage to fuse them? Miko asked, how to fuse two elements, sensei? Renjiro smiled and answered, I don't know. I never managed to do it. The basic requirement is that you should have a complete mastery of two natures. Only then can you attempt to fuse them. No one from Konoha ever managed to do this. Lord Second and Third spent quite a few years trying this but never succeeded. One of the Sunnins, Orochimaru, also tried without any success. But, we researched this a lot and concluded that managing to fuse two natures needs a lot of luck and maybe some sort of epiphany. While talent is also a factor, it isn't enough to achieve this. This information decreased the hopes of Fujin and Miko. Hoka wasn't concerned about this. Fujin thought, an epiphany. I guess that is the only explanation that can explain the likes of Kakashi, Hiruzen, and Orochimaru not achieving this. Still, this is definitely worth a try. Though I need to decide which elements to try. After analyzing, Fujin asked, Sensei, is this method only valid for elemental Kekii Genkai? Can Keki I Genkai such as Sharinan, Byakugan, or Shikatsumayaku also be created? Miko and Hoka were surprised by this question. They both looked at Fujin as he had just mentioned their Keki I Genkai. Renjiro answered, no. At least, there has been no record of those three Keki I Genkai appearing outside their bloodlines. Fujin was disappointed. He sighed internally thinking, just when I thought I had an easier way to climb to the top. I am not sure how much aid an elemental Keki I Genkai will provide me. But something like Sharinan or Shikatsumayaku would have buffed me up a lot. Renjiro said, anyways, don't bother trying to fuse two natures anytime soon. None of you has even mastered one nature manipulation to a sufficient degree. Fusing would need two natures at a similar level as my earth and water natures. I told you just so that you guys would be aware. So that if one of you gets lucky and has that epiphany in the future, you won't miss out on the good fortune. The trio nodded. Fujin thought, my wind element is still not at that level? Guess there really is no need to consider this anytime soon. The group finished their ramen and left the shop. Renjiro looked at his students and said, I am glad that Lord Hokage assigned me as your sensei. You have become fine ninjas. All three respectfully bowed and said in unison, thank you for teaching and training us, sensei. Renjiro looked with an emotional look and said, leave. Take some rest. He flickered away. Fujin, Hoka, and Miko saw Renjiro flickering. Hoka said in a sad voice, I'll miss training under him. We got so strong in a year. Fujin nodded, yes. We were lucky to have him as our sensei. From what I have heard, other senseis don't put this much effort into their students. Miko nodded and said, yes. Even my parents were very respectful of him. The trio looked at each other. Fujin said, I guess it means that we won't see each other often either. Hoka and Miko nodded. Hoka said, well, we could take missions together once in a while. Miko nodded, yes, that will be fun. She looked at Hoka and smirked, maybe you would learn something that could help you join my and Fujin's combo attack. Hoka's shoulders dropped. Though he had developed a lot of combination jutsus with Fujin and Miko, none came close to Fujin and Miko's wind and fire combination. Fujin said, I heard that Jiraiya of the Sunnins uses oil jutsu to strengthen his fire jutsus. I am not sure if that is a part of water release. But if it is, then you can check that. That way both oil and wind would amplify Miko's fire jutsu. Both Hoka and Miko were surprised by the suggestion. Hoka said, I had never thought of oil. Miko said, me neither. Fire, wind, and oil combination seems very strong. Great idea, Fujin. Hoka asked, why didn't you tell me about this sooner? Fujin shrugged and answered, I just had that thought. Besides, did you really want to learn more ninjutsu while our training was on? Hoka immediately became embarrassed. He replied, sorry, good point. The three exchanged glances. They didn't have any more words. Hoka said, let's leave, guys. Good luck. Next time we meet, let's have a battle royale again. Hoka and Miko grinned. Fujin replied, sure. Hopefully the next time you two will last longer. Fujin began laughing. Miko and Hoka angrily looked at Fujin, but he had flickered away. Only his laugh could still be heard. Miko said, that jerk is still as annoying as ever. Hoka sighed and said, yes. He was so quiet in the academy. I didn't think he'd have this side as well. Miko said, anyways, see you later Hoka. Hoka nodded and replied, see you as well. They both left towards their home. Team Renjiro, which was assembled a year ago and completed 7 rank D, 41 rank C and 3 rank A missions, was finally disbanded. Chapter 145, Plans for the Future. Fujin went straight to his home after leaving. While moving, he thought, what a crazy mission. Never thought I'd run into Kakazu so early. I'm not ready to face Akatsuki. It's doubtful that I'd be anytime soon. Sigh, this world is so dangerous. I need to increase the intensity of my training. And I need better ways of escaping. I am not sure if Wind Instantaneous Body Jutsu would be sufficient. After reaching his house, Fujin jumped into his bed. He was mentally exhausted from the encounter and physically exhausted due to running non-stop for hundreds of kilometers. He fell asleep. He slept till late afternoon. After waking up, he thought, so what to do now? He thought for a bit and said, I will have to calculate a lot. Let me fill my stomach first. He went out for lunch and returned in the evening. Before returning, he went to the Hokage's building and booked the training ground 23 for himself for the next few months. After returning home, he grabbed a book and a pen and sat on his bed. He sat in a meditative pose and began analyzing. After a while, he opened his eyes. He concluded, Konoha is notoriously famous for being very strict with jounin promotions. It's safe to say that I won't become a jounin for at least 3 years. Likely more. So I won't get any access to any A-rank wind jutsus for a long time. And I already have learned the good B-rank wind jutsus. So once I master those B-rank wind jutsus, I can work on diversifying my skill set. Problem is that there are way too many things that I want to learn. Right now, the most important thing is mastering air bullet jutsu and vacuum bullet jutsus. I need to be able to perform them without any hand signs. I also need to learn to shoot multiple vacuum bullets. But, from what Hiruzen said, I'll need quite some time before I'll be able to do it. He said that it will come naturally to me after performing a crazy number of vacuum bullet jutsus. But, he didn't say how many times I'd need to practice it. I will make a decision on this after learning to use it without any hand signs. Next, I'll need to learn the B-rank wind jutsus and perform them without hand signs as well. The next 2 important aspects are learning the lightning element and learning Fuin jutsu. I am not sure how easy or difficult the lightning element will be. Especially since I have to keep it a secret. As for Fuin jutsu, that should be easy. I can spam shadow clones for learning Fuin jutsu. But I won't be able to practice it alongside ninjutsu training. The best time to learn Fuin jutsu will be when I am learning lightning manipulation. But, it will have to stop when I start learning lightning jutsus. I'll make the decision when the time comes. After lightning and Fuin jutsu, I will try those ideas I have for wind jutsus. But, I am afraid that some of those applications of wind chakra could injure me if I don't control it perfectly. So I will need to learn mystical palm before it. My chakra control is very good, so learning mystical palm shouldn't be an issue. Right now, the skills that I am happy with are the Senju Taijutsu style and Samurai Saber technique. My Taijutsu and swordsmanship are both excellent, especially when paired with long-range wind jutsus. I would like to raise my Senju Taijutsu to Tsunade's way of fighting. But, it won't be easy. I had been trying it while training with Renjiro without a hint of success. Also, before I try to learn more ninjutsus, I have to sort out my current jutsus. I have learned quite a lot of jutsus, but I don't use a few of them. First, I have to decide which jutsus I want to keep using. Then I will have to perfect them. That leaves just genjutsu. I haven't focused on genjutsu much. My focus has been more on ninjutsu, taijutsu, and kenjutsu. I guess I should learn that genjutsu Tobirama had created to fight against the Uchiha. But for the rest, it's probably best to not even try. After all, no matter how skillful I may become, it's impossible to match the Sharingan in genjutsu. I might as well just focus on countering genjutsu. I would also like to learn Juinjutsu, but I guess that will follow after Fuinjutsu. So that can wait. I guess that's all for now. The only idea left is. Fujin extended his right forearm forward. He tightened his palm. Chakra appeared on his palm. It rotated at a high speed and began taking the form of a sphere. It was slightly unstable initially, but soon it maintained a proper sphere shape. Fujin thought, I haven't practiced Raise-nan at all for over a year. I could barely form it before I graduated. Now, I need to master this jutsu properly. From the time I graduated, my chakra reserves and control have improved many folds. So mastering Raise-nan shouldn't be taxing now. I need to be able to use it in combat situations. He went back to his bed and began writing down all the jutsus that he had learned so far. Transformation Jutsu, Clone Jutsu, Substitution Jutsu, Body Flicker Jutsu, Shadow Clone Jutsu, Raise-nan, Shadow Clone Explosion Jutsu, Wind Release, Gale Jutsu Jutsu, Wind Clone Jutsu, Wind Levitation Jutsu, Projectile Control Jutsu, Wind Retrieving Jutsu, Gale Surge Jutsu, Breakthrough Jutsu, Dust Cloud Jutsu, Wind Explosion Jutsu, Propelling Winds Jutsu, Great Breakthrough Jutsu, Spinning Shield of Wind Jutsu, Wind Gale Wolf Jutsu, Wind Dragon Jutsu, Wind Instantaneous Body Jutsu, Wind Sword Jutsu, Infinite Breakthrough Jutsu, Wind Torpedo Jutsu, Air Bullet Jutsu, Vacuum Sphere Jutsu, Vacuum Bullet Jutsu, Earth Release, Rock Shield Jutsu, Earth Military Movement Jutsu, Mud Moat Jutsu, Earth Release Camp Jutsu, Earth Instantaneous Body Jutsu, Earth Holding Jutsu, Earth Wall Jutsu, Genjutsu, Double Vision Jutsu, Demonic Illusion, Hell Viewing Jutsu. Fujin saw the list and had just one thought, when the fuck did I learn 37 jutsus? He sighed and exclaimed, no wonder I felt the need to sort my jutsus. Sigh, this is so much work. He began analyzing all his jutsus and their utility. After what seemed like an epoch, Fujin was finally done. He concluded his thoughts: among 36 jutsus, only 3 jutsus are completely useless for me. Clone jutsu, wind torpedo jutsu and earth holding jutsu. Wind clones are a much better option as compared to clone jutsu. As for wind torpedo jutsu, vacuum bullet jutsu does a much better job. As for earth holding jutsu, it is too slow to be useful for anything. There are also some redundancies. Breakthrough, great breakthrough, and infinite breakthrough jutsus are just advanced forms of each other. In fact, aspects of both jutsus are covered in the infinite breakthrough jutsu. So, once I master the infinite breakthrough, I'll be able to increase its power by supercharging or decrease its power to great breakthrough or even breakthrough by just controlling my chakra. It is the same with rock shield and earth wall jutsus, and with earth military movement and earth instantaneous body jutsus. Then, there are some very basic jutsus. Gale, wind retrieving, projectile control, wind levitation jutsu, propelling winds jutsu and dust cloud jutsus. Though these jutsus seem good, they don't work in a fast-paced battle. But, I have already mastered them. And I have a cool idea for them. So I'll set them aside for now. Next are utility jutsus. These can provide some uses. Gale jutsu can be used to cover up footprints and smell. Earth release camp jutsu can be used to make a hideout. Mud moat jutsu can be used to set up traps. These jutsus are handy, but I don't need to master them as I won't use them in battle. Now, for the important part. That is combat. I will divide jutsus into 4 parts: offense, defense, movement, and support. For defense, I have earth wall jutsu and spinning shield of wind jutsu. Both are good and mastered. And I have some ideas to improve the spinning shield of wind jutsu. And, I always have the option of escaping underground. This should be sufficient. For movement, I have substitution jutsu, body flicker jutsu, wind instantaneous body jutsu and earth instantaneous body jutsu. All 4 have been mastered. I wonder if there would be any lightning jutsu that promotes speed in the library. Anyways, this is good for now. The only ways that I know to improve this substantially are learning the lightning chakra mode or flying thunder god. For support, I have shadow clone and wind clone jutsus. Both are good. Especially when combined with shadow clone explosion jutsu. I also want to transform wind dragon jutsu and gale wind wolf jutsu into support. Otherwise, they aren't very effective. Lastly, offense. I guess I can further divide offense into close range, mid-range and long range. For close range offense. Well, that's a surprise. I only have Raise Non. Makes sense, I suppose. My sword is plenty. And my taijutsu is good as well. I guess I can improve this further by learning elemental Raise Non and maybe a jutsu like Chidori. For mid-range offense, I have wind explosion jutsu, wind sword jutsu, infinite breakthrough jutsu, air bullet jutsu, vacuum bullet jutsu and vacuum sphere jutsu. I should stop using wind explosion and air bullet as soon as I can. And instead, use vacuum sphere and vacuum bullet. Only with sufficient practice will I be able to reach a stage where vacuum jutsus feel as natural as those jutsus. I guess genjutsu would come under mid-range offense as well. I need to try using these two jutsus during missions against enemy Chunins and see how effective they are. Though, in the long run, they won't be very effective. Lastly, long-range offense. All my support jutsus double up as long-range offense. Infinite breakthrough and vacuum bullet jutsus also double up as long-range jutsus. Especially vacuum bullet, which has a fearsome penetrating power. Alright, this is it. That covers all my jutsus. I can form a battle system. Senju Taijutsu style and swordsmanship for close range. Vacuum bullet, wind sword, vacuum sphere, and infinite breakthrough for mid and long range attacks. Earth wall and spinning shield of wind for defense. Wind and shadow clones for support. Body flicker and substitution for dodging. Wind/earth instantaneous body jutsus for escaping. And my chakra field to sense or scout enemies. The only aspects that are missing are healing and maybe sealing. Once I learn mystical palm jutsu and a good seal, I should be a complete ninja who covers all aspects. Once this is done, I will pick one aspect and just focus on it till I reach among the top tier ninjas in that aspect. Fujin's face became very determined. The determination to become strong could be seen in his eyes. Fujin once again looked at the jutsus he had written and sighed, to think that just analyzing my current skills will get so complicated. That too when I have just focused on only one element. What a mess will this become if I master a few more elements and learn more jutsus. Fujin took one final look at the book. Suddenly, chakra appeared in his hands and covered the book. The book was shredded into tiny pieces. Fujin used wind levitation jutsu to keep the small pieces afloat. He collected them and burned everything, leaving no signs of it. With the jutsus analyzed, Fujin began thinking about Renjiro's words, so elements can be fused to create a Keki-I Genkai, While I had thought, I really didn't think it'd be possible. But, should I try to create one? Fujin began thinking. After a while, he concluded, an elemental Keki-I Genkai is very helpful in distinguishing from other normal ninjas. If I were to master an elemental Keki-I Genkai at this very moment, I'll become strong enough to confront veteran Jounins by myself. I might not win, but fighting equally and retreating would be very easy. But, beyond this, an elemental Keki-I Genkai isn't much help. At max, I can expect to reach the elite Jounin level. But considering that it'll be a few years till I master two elements, I should already be close to that level. So an elemental Keki-I Genkai wouldn't be that useful. Another question is that if I decide to create one, which Keki-I Genkai should I create? My top two elements are wind and lightning. That gives swift release. My third element is fire. I am not sure what fire and lightning do together. Fire and wind together should give scorch release. Scorch release is relatively good. The only known user was at S rank. So getting it could be a good help to reach that level. As for swift release, their bloodline was wiped out during the warring period. Though a few swift release users pop up, none have been famous. And there is barely any information in the library. That said, swift release is a bit unidimensional. All it does is increase speed. And I am already very fast. The main question will be, does swift release amplify my max speed? Or would it just help me reach some default speed and be useless if I already exceed that speed? If it's the latter, then it'll be a waste. But if it's the former, then it can be insanely good. If in the future I get my hands on the Raikage's lightning chakra mode technique and combine it with swift release and my own speed and they all stack up, I'll easily be the fastest ninja ever. And there is no need to even think about how overpowered that speed would make me. Especially if I even add the Flying Thunder God to the mix. Suddenly, Fujin stopped thinking. A wry smile appeared on Fujin's face as he realized, I am dreaming needlessly. I don't know whether I'd manage to learn even one of those 3 skills, let alone all 3. Not to mention, I have no whatsoever expertise in fire or lightning elements. I haven't learned even a single jutsu of those 2 elements. And Renjiro said that even my wind nature hasn't reached that level. So it's pointless to think or dream about this right now. After concluding his thoughts, Fujin decided, I'll rest for today. Tomorrow morning, my solo training begins.